Welcome to today's Insight Jam. It's time to get smart about data intelligence platforms. Get Smart, iconic comedic television series from my youth, and the 2008 movie version with Steve Carell and Anne Hathaway. It was just a great show, but the whole point of it was to provide a hilarious take on using intelligence to battle the evil forces. Well, today's competitive battlefield also requires intelligence, data intelligence, that is, and it's really no time for funny business. This dynamic is why data intelligence platforms are so critical, but don't take my word for it. Friend, panelist, and Vice President of Data Intelligence and Integration Software at Stewart Bond at IDC wrote, data intelligence platform software is key to helping organizations deliver AI-ready data products for synthesis and utilization in business activities. And that was in a report last fall. In another report this spring, he said, as AI evolves, data intelligence platforms are serving a key role in providing AI use cases, assistance agents with the data context that help ensure the right data, right model, right time for the right reason. But this goes beyond just AI and absolutely expands across to analytics and all kinds of other business data-driven use cases. Our friends at Bark wrote a report in the spring about data intelligence platforms. Data intelligence incorporates business, technical, relational, and operational metadata to clarify data classification, quality, location, context, and lineage, providing trusted, reliable, and actionable information to people, processes, and technologies. So broad expanse beyond just AI. And Stuart's been writing about this from way back. I think first report I read of yours to include data intelligence was back in 2018. Stewart, was that the first time you wrote about it?
Actually, I recently went back and took a look at all the things that I've published. In 2016, I was the first time I started using this term called data intelligence. I didn't actually get serious about it. I didn't get smart about it until 2018 and that's because a lot of clients were calling me, because if you remember, GDPR was just starting to come into play, and organizations were calling me and saying, where do I buy a data governance solution? So you can't buy a data governance solution. Data governance is an organizational discipline. It requires people, process, policy, rules. Yes, it has technology involved with it, but for me, that's data intelligence technology, which tells you everything you need to know about your data so you can then govern your data.
Got it. Well, thanks for that. And it's been a long journey and an interesting ride. And so basically, to help everyone else on this call get smart about data intelligence and leverage from Stewart and Susan's learnings, we've put together this panel today. And let's start with just kind of understanding a little bit about our two panelists. Tell us first, let's start with you, Stewart. Tell us a little about yourself, your organization, and your role there.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Actually, before I do that, I want to ask you if you have your shoe phone with you.
No, but we're not in the cone of silence.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been with IDC since 2015. I've been focused on the data intelligence, data integration software market ever since. It wasn't called that when I first joined. It was called, I think, data integration and access software. We made a few changes throughout the years. I've found that data intelligence is the really accelerating side of the market, growing side of the market. And so we made a name change a couple of years ago and called it data intelligence and data integration software. So my job at IDC is really, if you follow IDC at all, you know that we like to count things. So the big thing that we do every year is we count how big the markets are. And these are software markets, all different kinds of software markets. Again, I'm focused on this data intelligence, data integration functional market. And then within that, I break it out into 8 different sub-markets. So we can see, what's metadata management doing? How's that doing compared to change data capture or integration and transformation? What's that? How's that all happening? Or sorry, ingestion and transformation. How's that all comparing to each other? So we track the markets at that level to see what vendors did what in the previous year, and then we forecast those markets out 5 years. We do a lot of trend reporting. We do a lot of surveys. We go out and survey the market. What are your biggest challenges? What are your biggest fears? What are your biggest successes? And so every year I try to do a survey to the Office of the Chief Data Officer to ask those types of questions. And within there, I've actually just done some really cool work on figuring out what a scorecard is and who in that population is doing data intelligence, data integration really well, and who's not doing so well, and how does that relate to their business outcomes, and what's it mean for their data outcomes. And so there's a lot of really cool research that we do here at IDC along those lines. And I'm part of the AI and data teams at IDC. So I've got colleagues that look at data platforms, all other colleagues that look at just the databases themselves. I've got colleagues that look at data collaboration. I've got colleagues that look at the AI platforms and overall AI governance strategies. And so lots of different aspects of what we look at IDC. And so prior to IDC, I was with another research firm for a short time, but a big chunk of my career, I'm actually an industry analyst that came from been there, done that with technology. I was a certified IT architect with IBM for 10 years of my career, where I was implementing solutions for organizations as well as helping to guide them on their integration strategies for how they wanted to leverage integration from both an application and a data perspective. So that's me and my background. I've been in ITs, well, we'll just say over 30 years. I won't go back and give you the actual date.
Yeah, I think we can blend those numbers a little bit. See, smooth out the numbers a bit. So lots of primary research, which is fantastic input. Susan, you're the chief technologist at Quest Software. Tell us a little bit about you. You're there. What being a chief technologist means.
Yeah, no problem. I just swallowed bad. Sorry. Let me start with a little bit of history on myself too, and not to age myself. Why can I not talk? Sorry. I started to back in the 90s myself, and I was part of a 2-year migration where we were migrating all of the applications to a single company-wide application. And I was part of re-engineering all the processes, all the data, and moving to this new application system. And after that, my job was to create a SharePoint site that said what the data meant, and thus my career in metadata. So I started metadata with creating my own SharePoint site for a company. And then after that, I had several different roles. I was a DBA, I was a programmer, but my heart was more in the translation of what does this data mean. And I went on to be a metadata analyst, and then I headed up a metadata repository implementation at Wells Fargo for 7 years. From there, I joined the dark side and went to the vendor side, and have worked for multiple different software vendors dealing with data management. I also did some consulting where I worked with a lot of different products until I found my way to Erwin. And Erwin has been in the business of data literacy and understanding data for many, many years. And so it was a great privilege of mine to be with such a well-known brand. And now I'm the Chief Field Technology Officer for all of data within Quest. And what that means is that I work really closely with our largest clients globally. I do a lot of traveling. I'm a million miler on Delta. And I work with CDOs to understand their data strategies and map up data intelligence to their data strategies, and just put CDOs together with other CDAOs and have them learn from the experience of others and do a lot of user events and conferences and things like that. So really blessed and have had a great career so far in data.
Wow. I think we're going to get questions in the chat about how do I get a job like that?
I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky.
Sounds great. Well, let's dive in or jump in or get smart around data intelligence platforms. First of all, let's just start first things first. Why do anything? Why do it now? It's got to have a business driver. So let's begin with what's happening in business that's driving this demand for data intelligence platforms. Let's start with you, Stewart. You've been following this stuff and you got primary research every year. So what say you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it starts a little bit with what I talked about earlier, right? Data governance. That's always been a big driver for having intelligence about your data. And every organization needs to have some sort of data governance. When you get into the more highly regulated industries, they absolutely need that governance and need that intelligence. Whether you're a bank and you're trying to satisfy uh, data audits, compliance audits, you need the lineage to understand who touched the data throughout its entire life cycle, throughout the organization, and how that data changed and moved. That's critical to having to figure that out. Or you could be an analyst that's really just trying to make sure that the data that's being used in a model that you're going to take to present to your board of directors or your C-suite or even just your manager came from the right place and has good quality and is the right data to be used to be used in that instance. Data sovereignty is something that's coming up where the data intelligence is a part of understanding where the data is, physically where the data is, and what is in that data in terms of the people and the organizations and where those people and organizations are, is a part of the data sovereignty rules that are in place and organizations need to comply with. And improving the productivity of the data workers, right? We know for years there's been that 80-20 rule. It takes 80% of the time to actually find the data and work with the data, and 20% of the time to actually get the outcome from that data. We have primary research from surveys I've done that prove that point and show that the ratio really is 80-20. Are we getting better? Well, I don't know if we're getting better because data environments just continue to get more complicated, more complex. We talk about data environments being highly distributed, diverse and dynamic and dark. And you need data intelligence to try and help you sort that out and take control of that. And we know that data analysts spend a lot of time just trying to find the data. If they have intelligence about their data, they can find that data a lot faster, a lot easier. And now as we're getting into AI and AI governance, a lot of the reasons that organizations think they need AI governance harkens back to data governance and making sure, as you said earlier in one of my reports, I talked about using the right data at the right time at the right model and making sure it's being used for the right reasons. Those are all really, those are maybe more technical than business drivers, but that's what I see as sort of a broader perspective. I'm sure Susan has some better examples from the work she's done with CDOs at her customers.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan. What do you think?
I see it very similar to you, Stuart, for sure. They started from a data governance perspective, so a more risk-based approach. So we saw large financial industries and insurance companies that really needed to get within the regs and understand their data and how, if they're within the regulatory requirements or not. And that's what data lineage does, and that's what metadata does, and obviously that's what governance does. And then I think the shift started to move just a few years ago to, I need to find my data. I still can't. The biggest problem was still finding the data that they needed to align with their initiatives and with their projects. And now it's more about how do I keep up with the pace of change? How do I keep up with the pace of AI right now? So it's all about being fast and fast tracking their data projects and getting their hands on the right data, aligning that data, ensuring that they can trust that data when they use it. I see a lot of people bypassing data governance right now, bypassing the data modeling right now because of the need for speed. So from our perspective, it's all about how do I quickly manage this data and trust this data so that I can use it. And there's a lot of things that we're doing from an AI perspective to develop and help them keep things on track by doing it as you go. So governance as you go and fast tracking is kind of what it's all about for us right now.
So using AI as an enabler, apply the data for AI.
With
Wow.
AI for AI.
Want more Insight Jam? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for shorts, panels, podcasts, and more. In your Shorts feed, enjoy a daily dose of best practices from tech experts and leading solution providers, while long-form panel discussions and keynotes, recorded live every quarter, go deep on important industry topics. And don't miss our collection of regular podcasts, keeping you informed on the latest trends. We're hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so subscribe to be notified of our next upload. Now, let's get back to the show.
It's interesting that both of you started with a model, with the govern, right? And then find the data as assets, find these assets so we can make use of them. And now adapt and speed to the new requirements, et cetera. So it's almost like we've moved from fear to greed. But both work, when it comes to humans, are just kind of
Risk-based to value.
okay, risk-based value. Okay, a little more well put. Thank you. But that's an interesting thing because in some ways, intelligence. I go back to the word intelligence. What you guys are talking about is the first element of intelligence is understanding. If you don't understand, you can't get smart. But then you're talking about how do we now add value to that data and deliver value. So risk-based to value-based.
Yes.
Well, what are then the benefits of one of these platforms? Okay, Susan, your firms had stuff. I looked in the 2018 IDC report that Stewart wrote, and you guys were one of the vendors way back then. What kinds of benefits are people seeing when they do use a platform such as yours?
Yeah, there's so many benefits. So let's start with so the folks that are already have taken that risk-based approach, they have a good handle on their data and they're now able to get more to how do I use data as an asset? How do I use data for value? How do I win more clients and revenue from this data? And that's what we're trying to support. These are also the folks that are modernizing and using data in AI. So one of the big values is right now is to be able to go out and classify maybe a new cloud platform that they just moved to. So they've modernized their data. Maybe they lifted and shifted, and now they need to get their arms around that data. So one of the things that we focus on is going out there and classifying an application for them. So what do? We tell them where all of their PI information is. We tell them where their data at risk is. We tell them where their good and bad data exists and where that's propagating to and where it's coming from. So we're solving root cause analysis in a really quick manner for them, and we're classifying the data so that they know where to point their LLMs at, where to let me just say this is probably the biggest thing that the clients are asking for right now, and what they need is a semantic layer for the data. They need to understand the business information model or exactly what domain to go after. Let's use an example of a chatbot, right? So when you're building your reg for a chatbot, they need to understand quickly where to go after for this data. They need to understand if they can trust the data that they're bringing into that reg model. And then they need to filter out the privacy information and filter out information that they can't have leaked out in their chatbot. So that I think is the most sexiest play, if you will, right now from a data intelligence environment, because a data intelligence environment has the head connected to the body, has the business information connected to the technical information. And once you have that, that gives you that semantic level of understanding the data and going after the right data to solve the right problems. Sorry, I probably went on a little.
No, yeah, it was fantastic. I actually like the idea of the chat box example because that puts it in context, back to a business requirement, which is high customer satisfaction. And how do we do that and protect the data while we're at it? So basically, you started out with, drive some value, move from a risk-based approach to driving business outcomes and value. You talked about enabling new AI initiatives. You talked about being able to modernize your infrastructure and keep going without and without breaking and in fact enabling new projects and programs. Stewart, what do you see on the business benefits side?
Yeah, am I still on? No, okay, I'm not on mute anymore. Good. Put myself on mute a moment ago. Certainly, we're seeing. It's interesting because again, in I talked earlier about some of these surveys that we do, and so from a broad perspective, and I've been able to create that scorecard in those surveys, and for those organizations that are doing data intelligence really well, typically they have higher revenues or higher improvements in revenues. They have higher improvements in profit margins. They have higher improvements in operational efficiencies. They have better improvements in reducing operational costs. So there's a lot of that they're not causations, they're correlations that I find in the data. So for those organizations, again, in the surveys, those that are doing it really well, I ask them, what are your top 3 business metrics that you measure success by, and how much have those improved over the past 2 years? Then we find that correlation between those 2 different things. So that's from a basic business perspective. That is how I can tie that back to the business value. But it's significant, talking about what Susan talked about. It's making that connection. It's making sure that connection of that context and that data, that you're using the right data. I talk about data intelligence. It answers the 5 W's of data: the who, what, where, when, why, and how of data, and it adds relationship to that. So you can understand the relationship between that data, and that's so critical to activating that data, to leveraging that data, to using that data. Susan talked about chatbots. What we're seeing increasingly is we're also seeing this whole concept of agents, and agents are going to need to leverage data intelligence to, again, to use that data. What we're seeing, I was at the Data and AI Summit a couple of weeks, or I guess it was last week, last week. Yeah, wow, it's just a blur. And I was at Google Next, and I was at, Sapphire, and I was at all these big conferences, and very similar use case that we're seeing, a prompt of giving the top sales reps by region over the last 3 months in North America. And it goes away and it looks at the data and it pulls all the data together. It comes back with that answer, and it might even put it into a visualization for you so you can see that data. And that's kind of the panacea. That's where we want to get to. That's where BI has been trying to get to for years. But the only way that those agents or those chatbots or those assistants can answer that question is if they know where the data is to answer that question. They know how to pull the data together, how to do the joins, how to do the analysis, how to do the aggregations, the group bys, the sums. That's the only way that they're going to know how to do that. And the only way they're going to know how to do that is to have that intelligence about the data.
So absolutely. So I really like the idea that IDC, they have numbers on correlations between revenue and profit and stuff. And you wouldn't, that's fantastic. And then this enablement of agents. But okay, so we've had data management software. We've been making investments in data governance. We've been working on this stuff for years. What is it that that's causing organizations to really think they need a data intelligence platform and software investments and new technology, rather than just trying to keep making more from what they've already invested in. Let's start with you, Stewart. What do you think? You've been following this software market. They are buying. It is growing.
Yeah.
What's
So I think the data intelligence software we have today is very different from what it was 10 years ago. Again, when I started talking about data intelligence, it was 2016. That was when, not long after Elation came to market. Calibra was already in market, but they were in market as a data governance solution. Erwin started coming into the market, and Erwin was one of the originating vendors that helped in defining data intelligence as a new category. I put Erwin in there with Elation and Calibra and Informatica and others that helped define this market category. But they're different from what they were. We used to have metadata catalogs. We used to have IBM had IDC for years. But what they did, they were still somewhat siloed in what they did. They were really focused on one specific thing. But this new generation of data intelligence software elevated that picture. It brought it up to, let's look at all the data sources in the organization. Let's not just look at one database or one data warehouse, one operational data store. Let's look at everything, and let's look at the applications as well as the analytical data store. So let's look at everything. And that's one of the reasons they're buying this new software, because it really is different from where it's been. We're also seeing, obviously, in a lot of these cases, we're seeing AI being built into these platforms as well. That AI is learning from that metadata that they're collecting, so that these platforms are even smarter. They've gotten smarter at how they're managing that data intelligence and making that data intelligence available. The other reason there's growth here and people are buying new software is just, it's the reason people have always bought new software. And it's the reason organizations still have a tremendous amount of technical debt in their environment, because when you modernize your data environment, we need new modern software to take control of that data environment, to understand what's in that data environment. We can't use the old stuff to do that. We need new stuff. But the problem then becomes, there's all this old stuff that they still have that they can't adapt, and it's not easy to throw out because it's still looking at all that old stuff as well. So I think that's two things there, right? That's why they're buying new software, because they have to, and it's better at doing this stuff than what the old software was. Over time, we're going to see, there's this technical debt keeps building up, and until everyone's completely modernized their data environment, you're still going to have those legacy solutions kicking around. Susan, I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And the way I would describe it too is they want to solve data in a holistic manner. So they know if they don't do it in a holistic manner, then, one department might be doing great, or maybe they have a catalog inside of their Databricks or their Snowflake environment, and that they have a good job at, but is it really broad enough to understand data across the entire data landscape and across your business reports and your governance area and things like that? And I see it becoming, in the past, it's always been this checklist. Did you do your data modeling? Did you do your data governance? Did you do your data quality? But now all that needs to speed up, and it needs to happen in sync. And that's like, to try to develop that yourself or use it in one of the other tools, you're not going to get a holistic approach. You're not going to get everything harmonized in a way that an end user can deploy and see while they're building their AI code, or while they're creating their reg and things like that. So having the output and the input of everything together is what's going to help them keep up with the pace of change with AI. So why start all over, and why start in one niche area?
Got it. Well, I think we just wrote the RFP. So Stewart talked about breadth of sources, this diversity of sources. Our catalog worked great on Teradata. but now we've got Snowflake and Databricks and whatever. And so we're not, our catalog doesn't span, or we bought 3 other catalogs to go with these 3 other tools. And wait a minute, when does this not make sense anymore? Also, AI is built in the capability. So we're not, relying on this expert data governance person who kind of knows a little bit about everything and knows where the skeletons are, and can kind of go in and kind of manually try to make these systems work. You're talking about modernizing the data means modernizing the supporting infrastructure. So I think I covered that example in a way, and get better at it. They have to be better at it. And a more capable product, a more capable platform enables you to be does more things and is better at doing the work. You also said a holistic manner. This idea of whack-a-mole on the IT problems is just not a sufficient solution for the future. And then I love this checklist and how to get quality to speed. And in a sense, the old kind of workflow, okay, let's get the quality, and then let's build the model, and let's add the quality, etc. It has to be almost a parallel set of integrated activities. So I love all those reasons why people are buying new platforms. So great, we've got the new platforms. What's next? I mean, what are they going to do next? What are you seeing, Stewart, in terms of new capabilities being added as you each year look at the different vendors? What are some of the things that excite you and that will eventually deliver value as they get deployed?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of expansion, I would say. So these data intelligence platform vendors have really expanded what they do. The catalog on its own is no longer good enough. It's no longer really differentiating how you do the catalog and what you do in the catalog, and really how you activate and enable that data intelligence that's in the catalog is where you start to see the differentiation. And we've seen vendors in the market evolve and expand into AI governance. So they're now getting into, if you look at the intelligence about data, all the different things, lineage, ownership, quality, accountability, all these different things, definitions, what they mean, the semantics, all these different things about the data. Then you look at all the intelligence about AI models, and a lot of the attributes are the same. Who owns the model? What's the provenance of the data the model was trained on? What's the classification of that model? What kind of data can it use? What kind of data can't it use? All this sort of stuff. You start put those two things together. The data intelligence attributes are very similar. And so we're seeing a lot of the vendors really move into, how can I marry my data intelligence with my model intelligence to, again, make sure I'm using the right data with the right model to improve the outcomes and get into more of the AI governance use cases. Where we're seeing both, I would say, AI for data and data for AI. So, one of the parts that the intelligence is being leveraged for is, let's make sure we get the right data together to use with AI, both at the time of training the model as well as at the time of inference. You want to have that intelligence in real time and near real time, active, evergreen has to be there, so that when you're doing those inferences, you're using the right data. But then the AI for data, we're seeing a lot of AI capabilities being put into these platforms to get smarter about the curation of that data, improving the life and productivity of the data steward, so that it can give you, here's a English language, or a human readable language, I won't say English, here's human readable language version of what this data in this table means. And so you can apply, leverage that in the work that you're doing as a data steward. There's AIs being used to infer lineage, where there might be gaps in lineage. They're trying to infer lineage. Maybe this data did go from here to here, and this is what happened in the middle, because we saw what happened before that and after that, so we can infer what happened to it in the middle. And we're starting to now see more agentic stuff coming into this space as well. A couple of weeks ago, you saw Elation acquire Number Station. They want to build more agents on top of that data intelligence to get to the point of activating that intelligence. Because data catalog, all the intelligence that you have in that data catalog is really great. It's very valuable, but it's not valuable if all it does is sit there. So the more you leverage that intelligence in the workflows, in your organization, the more you leverage it in the processes that you have and the analytics you do, the more valuable that intelligence becomes. And so we're seeing some transitions from just a data catalog to more about activating being more than a data catalog, getting that intelligence into the organization.
Great. Susan, what's exciting in you guys' roadmap or things that you've recently brought to market?
Yeah. So let's start with recently brought to market. So one of the things that our clients were really liked was our AI trust model. And I too have just been at a million conferences this last spring, and Gartner's really hot right now on the trust scores and trust models as well. And what that is an underlying algorithm that tells them everything about how good the data has been, what the profiling results of the data is, what the end user rankings of the data is, and how well curated the data is. And we have like 9 different facets that you can include in that algorithm and put your own weight on which ones you choose. And then it will define a trust score for your data sets and for your data products. So that's been really, really interesting. Also, observing the data. So there's data quality built into the Erwin technology. And one of the things that we can do is observe that data for bias and for when data starts to drift, and then send alerts. And then our clients can get alerted to when the data falls below the min value or above the max value. And when data starts to degrade, it goes from gold down to yellow or red, and then we'll give them those alerts. So that's active metadata. And then AI certification. So we're helping them understand the intent of their AI models and following the 7 steps, which is kind of a best practice for the Erwin solution. And then once they've completed those 7 steps, the AI model is certified. All of those are helping the AI models. But going forward, it's more going to be around agentic AI inside of the technology itself. So some of the things we're working on there, we have just released support for unstructured data as well. So as you know, the LLMs and the AI, 80% of that is unstructured data. So you need to understand the unstructured data sets just as much as the structured. So that's pretty hot right now. We have a AI. Stewart talked about the lineage in inferring the lineage. We've kind of taken it a step forward into a universal connector. So clients, this has been one of the most laborious, hardest processes in creating data lineage, is because every technology has a different dialect of code and a different way of connecting to it. So we're using AI to have an AI universal connector to make that whole process much easier. Another area that we're going down is definitely the virtual stewardship and self-learning catalog with agentic AI. So being able to build a business glossary on its own. So right now we've released, you can ask and say, where are my definition, or where are all my business terms that don't have definitions, and it will populate a definition, and then you decide yes or no. Do you want that definition? We have that classification of the databases. So you can point it at a databases or an application and say, find out my PI information, find out my critical information, things like that. That's pretty exciting right now. And then we're going to start to dip our toe into synthetic data as well. So what better place than to create data from a place that you can trust and a place that's been managed and monitored inside of a marketplace. So
Wow.
Just a few things.
Unlock better leads through Solutions Review events.
Welcome to Data Demo Day. Expert Roundtable, Solution Spotlight featuring Monte Carlo, Cohesity, Denodo, Cloudflare, High Gear, Broadcom, Next Thing.
Boost your brand with a webinar that shares comprehensive use cases, real-time product demos, and an interactive Q&A. All broadcast live to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Zoom from our Boston studio, or even on location. Fill your sales funnel with high-quality targeted leads. And contact us today by visiting solutionsreview.com/virtual events.
So moving just far beyond catalogs, the AI enablement, AI for data, data for AI. I like that, both those capabilities, and then starting to enable the agentic structures. TrustMod, fantastic. 9 facets automatically helping you figure out what the trust score really should be, and an ability to fine tune that based on your own, on these 9 facets, and just do all that work for you. Fantastic. Observe data for bias, AI certifications. So really a lot on the trust front, and certainly supportive of the governance, the fear side, but also the enablement of the greed side, the value delivery. AI, unstructured data, that whole other domain. Gosh, what is that stuff? We're all it's stored in rows and columns, right?
I just got a request for an opportunity. It's actually over in Australia, where they want us to filter and understand 1 billion unstructured documents.
Wow.
Yes. So there's a lot of it too, I guess, is my point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Inferring lineage. Yeah, I mean, help me. And then a lot of virtual self-learning capabilities. Wow, what a list. Seems overwhelming. Where do you start? What's the best practices? I mean, so many, oftentimes in the technology environment, the capabilities outweigh your capacity to implement. And so there's got to be an 80-20 there, right? So where's the best leverage, for the best starting points? Susan, what do you see in your clients? I know that your vision is kind of focused on your products, but I think there's probably a lot of general best practices that you've observed.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned the best practice of we've embedded the 7 steps into the technology itself, saying that, you have to go through this, understanding it from a logical perspective, understanding it from a governance perspective, and then the ongoing observing of the data and building that trust score. So we've had that for a while as a Sherpa, if you will, through an implementation for our end users. But we're seeing that, if you take that literally, it could take a while to get, we call it model to marketplace, from your data model out to having something available inside of your enterprise data marketplace. And so what I think is like really disruptive right now from a best practices perspective is creating a data product, going about an implementation from a data product by data product perspective. So it's faster and it's tangible to the end users. So what is a data product from our perspective? It's a use case. So if you come to your data scientists and your data analysts and say, I need a complete data set around this problem. And maybe the problem is, where am I going to put my next banking branch location or my next ATM? That's something that banks deal with on a regular basis across all regions, right? So if you have everything bundled in a data product, so you have what internal data sets, what external data sets, what reports you need, what guardrails you need to be aware of when you're creating that new initiative, bundled in a product, you have something tangible and something that can be reshared across the organization. We have one of our clients, and I think I can talk about it because he talked about it with me, the CDO of Tokyo Marine, Kevin Smith, at Gartner. He saved 750 man hours by having this reusable data set where he replaced 300 different spreadsheets and where it was able to use it across every line of business, this one tangible data product. So that I think is a best practice that is getting a lot of credibility right now, and it gives you early value impact early and often throughout your project if you're going about it from a data product perspective.
Wow, that's interesting. It's it's your 7-step process guidance and stuff as a Sherpa, but it kind of almost brings up another list of 7 from Kobe. You begin with the end in mind. He's thinking of these data products and really just work backwards.
Yeah.
And the most important data product, put your effort into those, and then maybe you create some reusable insights and components and governance models and scores, et cetera, that might enable you to speed up the next data product, but working backwards instead of trying to boil the ocean.
And just thinking of data like a data product is foundational, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at something like the iPhone back in 2017, it was completely different than what it is today. A data product is something tangible, and we have customers that create other data products from data products and then work with it and continue to govern it and make it mainstream. And it turns out to be something really tangible and really valuable and impactful for the company.
So what you're kind of saying is this data product itself becomes an intersection point between the customers who use that data of that product and then the IT guys on the other side, and it becomes something tangible where each that's meeting in a middle.
Exactly. And you can have a roadmap of data products, right? Yep. And
Okay.
there's solving use cases.
Well, that's an excellent best practice and starting point. How about you, Stuart? Where do you see people finding their success in trying to deploy data intelligence platforms?
Yeah, so I agree with Susan. Data products, we're really bullish on data products. We think that they're the key to unlocking the value of AI and getting out the outcomes from AI that you want. I love that example, Susan, of that one person. We've heard some other great examples from other end clients that we speak to as well. And but I'm also surprised at how many organizations think they're doing data products really well. But how they define data products will depend on whether or not they're really doing data products. that's a big issue. So data products are key. My advice to organizations always is even if it's a data product approach, if you're going to create a data product, or if you're going to harvest a bunch of intelligence about data so you can take more control over that data, do it in a way that, pick a pilot or pick an area of the business you want to focus on. Maybe pick one business process and figure what are all the different data sources that I need to get access to within that business process. How do I use that data? What are all the different data products that are used in there? And focus in on that business process, or maybe focus on 1 or 2 data repositories. Don't pick a scope that is so huge that you've got hundreds of stakeholders. You're never going to make a decision. You're never going to make progress. But also pick an area that when you get to the end of it, you can demonstrate real business value. Don't automate the expense reimbursement process. Maybe that's going to help with operational costs and employee productivity, because they don't have to do that all the time. But that in itself isn't going to change the bottom line of the business or the top line of the business. Focus on something that proves real business value, because if you can demonstrate that your data intelligence is making a difference in the business, you're going to get budget to do more and more and more elsewhere in the organization. I really like the idea of starting with that trust, or with that data quality piece, right? I spoke to an organization years ago, and they finally realized that data will never be 100% clean. But if you know how dirty or clean the data is, that gives you the ability to start to trust that data, to understand. And that information can be leveraged in what you do as an organization and how you use that data. The biggest thing for me, though, is just adoption. When we do all of our reference interviews with all the clients that we speak to, as we do our market evaluations, the biggest challenge they always bump into is adoption. We can't get people to use the platform. And that's really a disgrace to the platform itself, because the more that people use it, the more valuable it becomes. Because a big part of it is this ability to crowdsource, to get experts to weigh in on what that data is, what that data means. Is this good data? Is this bad data? That all becomes a part of that repository of data intelligence that's leveraged to activate that data and activate that intelligence in the organization. So adoption is key, and whatever can be done in terms of incentive to get people to use that platform more, to get people to leverage it more in what they do, the better off the organization will be. And so that, start small, start business relevant, but push that adoption as much as you can.
I got to comment on that because I couldn't. That has been the biggest. Sorry, that has been the biggest problem for the last 20 years is end user adoption for sure. And now I feel like with the advent of a data marketplace,
Yeah.
you kill a lot of the what is this thing that I'm going into by just the name of a supermarket or a data marketplace, because who doesn't know how to shop, right? So if you're going in and you're shop sharing and comparing data sets in an Amazon-like friendly way, it's something you're really familiar with and you get the concept right away, and then you can go on to understanding the data better. So you get over the hurdle of what is this thing even, and why do I need to use it when you have this enterprise data marketplace. And the other thing that I like to say is data governance is done the best when your users don't even know they're doing it. And that's the collaboration routines and making it real for the end users. And one of the things that we just brought out too was a new personalized homepage. So you can go in and right away see what data sets did I just work on? What are the new data products that are available to me? What are the AI models that are out there? Because you're right, it's all about transparency. We're not just looking for just the best data that's out there. We're just trying to understand how good or bad the data is. So, yeah, so those are just a couple of things that I wanted to say that we're seeing a lot of leaps and bounds from a adoption perspective out there right now.
Thanks. Again, more insights. The data enforcing the importance of data products, showcasing value. Do something that makes the CEO happy, not the CEO's admin. Trust models, never 100%. I think that's very interesting. I've always thought, hey, if instead of knowing everything I need to know about the data, if I just know that Stan uses it in the month-end close,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do, if it's good enough for Stan, it's good enough for me, and I'll take a note. The marketplace, I think, is a great kind of what's the right term? A foil or something where you're kind of you don't really realize what you're dealing with. You're just enjoying the value. That's great. Well, some great insights. We've covered a lot today. We've talked about the business drivers. We've talked about the benefits. We've talked about why you have to go to a new platform rather than continuing to try to bolt together or rewire the pieces and parts where you've invested. A lot of the new capabilities that are just come out and are coming out and really drive those advancements forward to the benefit of the users. And then we get some insights on some best practices and small room points. So very comprehensive today. Thank you both. Stewart, Susan, if the people want to reach out to you and get more information, what's your suggested interaction point? Starting with you, Susan.
LinkedIn. I would say find me on LinkedIn. I'm right out there. And we have a great Quest homepage as well for all things data.
Great. And Stewart, you?
Yeah, same with me. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also look me up on idc.com, and you can take a look at the research that I've done. It's all behind a paywall, but you can at least read the abstracts, and so I've also got a few blog posts on the IDC blog you can have a look at as well.
Great. And then, of course, all the industry trade shows. they can just track you guys down because you're at all of Fantastic. Well, this was a great jam session today. We've got more of them coming up. The next one, new jam session presenter, Wayne Eckerson. I've known that guy for many years, been to Red Sox games with him, etc. His session will be on the 27th of this month, so next week. Tips from the trenches, future-proofing your data architecture. So Wayne knows a lot about data architecture, so that should be a good session. July 4th, Friday, we're going to take a break. And hopefully everyone listening today can take a break as well. And then come back on June 11th for Share Fox, the evolution, how smart infrastructure is fueling the electronic future. Anyway, great session today. Thank you. And I'll be back in July. And my session is tentatively titled, Take the AI Road to Better Data Integration. All right, everyone. Thank you today. Thank you, guests. And we will see you at the next Inside Jam.